This is Real Life with Deb Waterbury, a real show for real people with real issues. And now, here's your host, Dr. Deb Waterbury.
Welcome to this episode of Real Life with Deb Waterbury. We are winding up our series on grief today during this episode, and it has been, we've had some really good discussions about, dealing with stuff like loss and dealing with our own sin, which is a big deal, grieving over our sin. And we've spoken with a lady, Sally Knipe, who wrote a book on her experience when she lost her husband. But I really felt like it was, I've had Bobby on my show a couple of times when I was on the radio. Bobby and I go way back. This is Bobby Rill and Bob Rill. When I told my husband, I said, I have Bobby and Bob coming. He goes, who? He said, did you say that wrong? And he said, are they brother and sister?
No, we thought it was a good foundation for a solid marriage.
It is, and obviously it is. So Bobby and Bob both run a counseling service and deal a whole lot with grief. And then Bobby, you also have a recovery ministry. Is it the same thing? Everything's sort of the same with you and Bob?
Well, we own the Grief and Wellness Group here in Tucson.
Okay.
And really focus on helping people deal with any kind of significant loss. But in addition to the certified grief recovery specialists that we have as part of our team here, I am a licensed professional counselor, and it's been
very good
30 years.
Wow, you said the number.
I'm
impressed by that. I usually say it's been some years.
Over 10.
Well, Bobby has, again, I met you so many years ago when you came and spoke to a women's group whenever I was a women's ministry, and I will just say, some years ago. But then even since then, I've, referred so many people to you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you
and
have.
I know you've done so
Thank
much
you.
wonderful. No, and I wouldn't tell them to go anywhere else. And then I think, Bob, you've also counseled my son.
Actually, my background's education.
Oh, is it?
And I'm a chaplain and a grief recovery specialist.
Oh, well, see, I think that's well-rounded.
Yeah. So, it's a good fit. Mm-hmm. This process actually is more educational in form.
Right.
But the therapy aspect comes in the fact that they actually do the physical work.
Yes.
And when they do, it's guided. So
yes, of
when
course.
they do that physical work, it actually begins to clear the screen.
Yes, I would imagine so, because there's no such thing as pixie dust that you sprinkle on somebody and then they get over it. It's like anything, you have to do the stuff.
No magic bullet.
Yeah, and it's really nice that you guys have this guided process, because y'all have grief recovery groups and then y'all do it individually as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And so is it a certain kind of grief or a dimension of grief or a thing that someone goes through that would have them better be in a group or an individual, or is it just depending on the person?
Well, first of all, grief, when we think of it, we think of death and divorce, because those are the two big ones.
Right.
But it really encompasses a lot of other. It could be betrayal. It could be moving and losing all of your connection with friends and all of this. So grief is really broad. But what I do is I recommend, if you're willing to go into a group, I love to recommend that first and foremost, because you're going to get support from the other group members.
Yes.
And learn from the questions that they ask. So, and it's more affordable.
Yes.
But we do recognize that there are a lot of people that want a more private setting.
Right.
And so we definitely respect those that want more confidentiality in that regard and private setting. So we do a lot of individual work as well.
And y'all have, and I want them to be able to hear this so we don't run out of time, and we'll get into this in a minute. What kind of groups do you have available and then that are coming up here soon that people could actually get involved in?
Yes, go ahead, Bob.
Well, we have groups on the grief, and then we also have groups on how to help children grieve. Which actually is separate.
Yeah, but that's so good.
It is.
I've never even heard of anything like that.
Well, we've really just started in implementing this program. It's a 4-week program for 2.5 hours every week for those 4 weeks. And it is designed for adults.
Okay.
It's for the parents, the grandparents, teachers, anyone working with kids to help them know how to help children process grief.
Wow, that is so valuable. Oh my goodness.
Any school teacher, knows that they can recognize when children are
Yes.
having, and of course, the Sunday school teachers, it's pretty imperative if they want to really
Absolutely.
minister to kids.
Oh, I agree. So y'all have one of those groups going on now? Or
We
soon?
actually do. We've got one starting in July 24th, which is a Wednesday evening, and that group will be from 6 to 8:30 p.m. at our office, which is on Oracle.
Okay, well, we'll have all that information right below the video. Those of you who are watching here on YouTube, you can look underneath there. We'll have all the website information, all those group informations. And for those of you who are watching the video later than its air date or whatever, because I think this airs, I think we're airing in November. These will go all the time, right?
That is absolutely correct. We are continually offering our 8-week grief recovery groups that are 2 hours each week, and then periodically we are doing the helping children deal with grief.
Oh,
and of course, individual sessions are always available.
Right. They can get those at any time.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, so tell me really quickly what got y'all into this. I mean, why? I mean, how? I won't say why. We'll just ask how.
Well, it was a natural segue for Bobby. She found the grief recovery method.
Mm-hmm.
And when she found that, she got so excited about it. And then she kept pestering me, you really need to go through this.
Right.
And when I did, I did a relationship program on my father, which I had somewhat of a contentious relationship with. Mm-hmm. And it was so rewarding and so uplifting to be able to do that I went through it several more times under Bobby's leadership and then got certified myself.
Wow.
And it's just a delight to see that people have breakthrough.
Oh, gosh,
that they
yes.
need.
Well, so what makes this method different than other things that have been practiced for lots and lots of years?
Yes. Okay. We've all heard the 5 stages of grief, which was Dr. Kubler-Ross's research, which was phenomenal, but her research was not on grieving. Her research was on death and dying, and she discovered that people who had received a terminal diagnosis went through these 5 stages that we commonly hear. But the truth of the matter is we really didn't have anything effective at that time on grieving.
All those 5 stages were literally for people who were dying or had lost?
That's correct.
Really?
That they were for those. I know it.
Wow.
And they still teach it today.
Yes,
and they still teach it today. And that's why what brought me to the grief recovery method was my dissatisfaction with the 5 stages because it wasn't hitting the nail on the head with my clients. I was counseling, so I was doing part of grief and loss as just part of my counseling. And what I discovered is that, the 5 stages allow you to be angry and depressed is what they call it. And those are the only 2 emotions that really is covered in the 5 stages. I'm here to tell you that people that are grieving, they are feeling confused, they're feeling overwhelmed, they're feeling fearful of the future and the unknown, as well as some of them may be angry because it is a very common emotion. And they may even feel relief because now my loved one who has been suffering for all this time, all of a sudden, they're not hurting anymore.
And that, how many people I've talked to have felt guilty about feeling relief in that. My brother was one of them. When his wife had suffered from breast cancer and then became brain cancer, and she suffered for years. And when she finally passed, it took him a long time to get past the guilt of feeling relief that she finally had passed away.
Okay, do we have time? I'd like to speak to that guilt.
Yes, you do. Yes, absolutely.
Because it's so important. So many people feel guilty because they wish they would have said, one more time to Mom that I loved her, or I wish I would have been able to make that memorial service or be there when they died. And all these things that we wish would have happened a little bit different. And we felt guilty. They use the guilt word for that. But I want to tell you, I asked an attorney, what does guilt really mean? And in a court of law, when that judge puts down that gavel and pronounces someone guilty, it means one word: intent. Intent to do harm.
Really?
So I encourage people that are hurting because of grief and those things that you wish would have been better or different in the relationship, not to use the word guilt, but rather regret.
There you go.
Because it's no intent to do harm.
Of course not.
It's our regret that we wish things would have been different.
Very good.
And that's what we deal with, right,
Yes.
Bob? Yeah.
You deal with the regrets.
Yes.
Words matter.
Of course, yes, they absolutely do. And those, and you mentioned before, and I want you to talk some to this, because, we all deal with loss. And we grieve. Some of us will grieve differently than other people over the same kinds of loss. Now, how do you, because again, that's kind of an individual thing, isn't it? The way I grieve is going to be different than the way someone else grieves. And how do you move in that, even as counselors?
Well, of course, everybody is individual. And you have a lot of times when you have a loss of especially a child, the wife becomes very tearful and broken up, and the husband becomes somewhat stoic. And so she thinks that he's probably not concerned about the death of
which is probably why so many marriages break up after that happens.
It really affects the marriage. And but if they can, in fact, come together and grieve together, understanding each's individual role in that, then it really does salvage the marriage and create a...
What a great piece of advice and a great piece of knowledge right there.
Yes, because when you look in how we've been taught in our country, the men actually been taught, you need to be strong. And we're told we need to be strong. Well, what does that mean?
That means you don't show emotion.
That's right. Yes. And that's where sometimes the barrier begins to be inserted in between a relationship.
Yes.
As instead of trying to be strong, but give permission to grieve together.
My husband and I obviously have not lost a child, but I can say that in the things my boys have gone through, or when they left, home, I was devastated. And I remember being furious with Jeff that he wasn't devastated. And I thought, he just doesn't love them like I do. There's no way he can love them as much as I do, because I'm devastated here. And he's just going on about his life and acts like there's nothing wrong. Of course, obviously, I've got a little bit of training, was able to see through that, and with a lot of prayer. But what I'm finding now with mothers, I'm actually in the middle of writing another book about that letting go process for moms, that we can't judge our husbands because they don't do this the same way that we do, and that they're not showing it the same way that we do, because you judge that as a lack of love, and that's unfair and untrue.
That is untrue.
Yes. And it's so important for us to understand the things that don't work. And trying to be strong for someone does not help the griever. What the griever really wants is someone to grieve with them.
Yes.
Someone to be a shoulder to just let them cry without trying to fix them, without trying to analyze them or judge them or criticize them.
And not offer a solution.
Yes.
That I find
male trait.
Yes. Well, I think it's true for me too, because I'm type A and I'm a counselor, so I want to give them a solution how they don't have to feel that way anymore. And what I've learned over the years is to just say, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that this is what you're feeling. Do you want to go to coffee? Would you like to talk? Would you like to whatever? As opposed to, okay, if you do this, and if you think about this and make sure you pray about that, then you'll feel better, because that's just not going to happen.
Right.
Not for a time. And most of this I've learned from you, Bobby. Actually, from interviewing you and being around you, is that, even as I have friends now who have suffered some serious loss, and as I'm speaking with this one friend in particular, I want you to speak to this too. She's really attempting to intellectualize her loss, and being able to tell her, you need to feel this. You're going to feel it later. You may as well feel it now. So stop fighting the feeling.
Yes.
But she's trying to intellectualize her way around that. Is that normal?
It is. It's very normal in our culture, because people don't know what to do with the emotions. And besides, if we show emotions, that has an kind of a stigma
like
in
you're not
our
strong,
country.
you're weak or something.
Yes, of being weak. And so we have done a great job trying to maintain our composure, because image is so important.
Right.
And so that's trying to be strong. And sometimes a griever will try to be strong for all of those around them.
Yes.
Because they know they don't know what to say or what to do. And so well-meaning people even will try to take a griever out of the heart into the head. Well, you know they're in a better place.
Oh, yes.
Or at least they're not suffering anymore. And so they're intellectualizing it.
Right.
So the best thing, and we do it ourselves.
Oh, yes, of course.
We do it ourselves because it's much much more comfortable to reside up here than it is to identify what's going on down here.
It hurts like a mad dog.
Yes.
That's the last thing you want to do is feel that.
Yes. So I encourage, and what we do is we encourage people, and when you're working with your friend, try to identify what you think she might be feeling and ask her just one word. Scared?
That's good.
Overwhelmed?
Yeah.
You know, we don't tell people how they feel, but we'll offer suggestions to help get them out of here to deal it here, because grief is emotional. It is not intellectual.
That is so good, and it's so much what we don't want. I mean, obviously,
I know.
and you know, and loss to death is obviously the worst of this, and I wouldn't say the worst necessarily, but it's the one we think of the most, and it is very devastating because there's a finality there. But there's so many other, and I would like for you to maybe address some of these people who are watching who may think that what they're feeling, which is grief, isn't grief because they haven't lost anybody.
Oh, yes, yes. Oh, we get that all the time. Well, in fact, you know, as we look at grief, we say it is the conflicting feelings with the end of or change in any familiar pattern of behavior. So
wow, that's broad.
Yes, it is. It is very broad. And just like you had mentioned, the empty nest.
Yes.
That is loss.
Yes.
That's loss of having those loved ones around you and noise in the house, and all of a sudden the silence becomes deafening almost. And also you're leaving your friends and your familiar surrounding. And we grieved when we moved to Tucson from Michigan.
So did I, but for a lot of reasons.
and because, again, the familiar, you know, in any interruption in that or change and loss just encompasses so much. I was thinking about even some of our kids as they are facing, you know, going away to college or graduation from high school. We think that's a very celebratory event, and it is, because I no longer have to have so-and-so for history, you know. Right. But also it's loss, because maybe the kids they grew up with all of a sudden now are all going their separate ways to different things.
I wish I'd had you whenever I remembered when I was 19. I totally remember sitting on the floor in my bedroom and sobbing like a baby. It was because I knew I was going to miss my friends, and I was going off to college, and I think I already was in college for a bit, and I just was so sad, but I would never have seen it as grief.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was doing or why I was feeling those things. I think I thought I was weak. I mean, I really think I thought I was being a baby. And you know, as parents, I think that's so important that we allow that and we understand that you may be grieving that they're going to leave you, but they're grieving that they're leaving you and everybody else.
That's right.
And this big change in their lives.
Yes.
And often I think we become so centered on our own selves that we don't recognize that your children are feeling this as well.
And if you look at even retirement, there's conflicting feelings with that. Thrilled to have their own life back, and yet loss of purpose, loss of co-workers connection, perhaps loss of income, all sorts of things. But Deb, even grief goes much further than what we're talking about. Those are all very tangible losses, but there's a lot of loss that's intangible. Like the loss of our confidence, self-confidence, or respect, loss of safety, loss of trust.
Oh my goodness, this is making my heart hurt. Just because I'm thinking, I'm thinking of just that. Not what it makes my heart hurt because there's so many places in my life where I haven't identified that appropriately.
Well, and okay, I love what you just said. Your heart hurts because anything that causes a broken heart is grief.
Okay, so I'm grieving the fact that I didn't understand grief. Well, I mean, honestly, because I want to help my children. I would like to help my husband. I'd like to help myself. And now I want to help all the women that come to me, and being able to identify appropriately what they're feeling. I think that has to be a very important first step.
It definitely is something that's important to help them identify how they're feeling.
Right.
Because I think the problem that we sometimes experience is that if a person has experienced a similar loss, than the person who's now currently grieving. We think we know how they feel.
Right.
But we don't, just because of what Bob was saying. Every relationship and every person is so unique that we don't know how anyone else feels.
So it's really about encouraging them to feel what they feel.
Yes.
Not telling them what they feel.
But helping. And that's why I did it with the little upswing.
Right.
That you ask them a question.
Saying you're feeling
overwhelmed.
Yes.
You know?
Right. You're starting the conversation and the actual
discouraged.
Yes. To look into that.
Yes.
And I remember this when I had you on the radio show. I could have gone, and my show was an hour, and I could have gone a billion years. So I could be here forever with you two, because this is so interesting and so vital, because we all need to know how both to grieve and then to help those who are grieving. And it's been done wrong for so long. Or I hate to use the word wrong. There's just been a lot of misinterpretation of what has actually been occurring in a person. So as we close here, I'd like for y'all to give people who may feel that they are feeling grief and they now for the first time realizing, oh my goodness, I'm grieving. No one died. I'm not divorced or anything, but I'm grieving right now. So what would your advice be to those people?
Well, my advice is, first of all, don't be hard on yourself. Recognize that to feel sad and even to be in a depressed mood does not mean you are depressed or clinically depressed. It's okay to be sad. And I encourage you to be open and honest with regards to those feelings and see if you can identify them, because that's part of what we do, is help people identify how you're feeling and what you regret, what you wish would have been different in your life or your relationships, and we can help you with that.
Very good.
Yeah.
Excellent. Do you have anything to add there, Mr. Bob?
Well, we just had a friend that went through the death of a sister. And the other question that really is important, open-ended, tell me what happened. And, well, I tell you, when Bobby asked that question, everything just came spilling out. And the details were far beyond what we even personally comprehended.
Right.
And we knew somewhat of the details of the circumstance. But, just to be able to pour the heart out with regard to a question like that,
it's very cathartic and healing.
It is.
I can imagine.
And I encourage people, seek help, seek professional help, and look for the grief recovery method, because that has been so effective in helping people really transform their lives so that they can move on and love again, laugh again. And at the time you're in the throes of it, you think that's the way you're going to feel forever.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be, because there is help and there's hope for you.
Very good. Thank you so much, Bobby. We will have all the information underneath this video of how you can get in touch with Bobby and Bob and learn more about the grief recovery method, especially if you're in an area that's not Tucson and you're watching this and you want to get into that and you can't necessarily come see Bobby and Bob, then you can get some information about where you can get that. Okay, thank you so much. God bless you. We will see you next time. Thank you for joining me today on this episode of Real Life with Deb Waterbury. I hope it's been a blessing to you as much as it was to me. If you want any of my books or information on articles or any of my speaking engagements, you can go to my website at debwaterbury.com. God bless you.